The class of 2023 for the Naismith Basketball Hall of Fame is probably going to go down as one of the best in history. To start off, we have Becky Hammon, the current head coach of the Vegas Aces, but back in her playing days, she was one hell of a player. She won a couple of WNBA titles. She played times with the New York Liberty and later with the San Antonio Stars. She led the league in assists one year and also made several WNBA All-Star games. And this was when Team USA, at least for women's basketball, didn't even give her a tryout, which definitely is a loaded roster at the time, so maybe it was just really hard to find a place for her. But she decided to go over to Russia, and she had a Russian citizenship, so that's how she ended up being eligible to represent Russia in the Olympics and simply carried Russia to the bronze medal back in 2008. And she is now the first ever Russian player, men's or women's, to make the Naismith Basketball Hall of Fame, and that's really, really cool. I'm super happy for her and wish her well for her coaching career. She's going to be great for the Vegas Aces. Now, Becky, she spent 8 years as an assistant head coach with the San Antonio Spurs, learning under one of the best head coaches of the modern era in Greg Popovich, who was also part of the 2023 class. And part of his enshrinement, he reminisced on the great days back with the Spurs with Tim Duncan, Tony Parker, Manu Ginobili, en route to winning 5 titles. He is the all-time winningest head coach in terms of regular season wins. He has done so much for this game. We can appreciate what he has been able to do for the San Antonio Spurs, just simply bringing them from a team that maybe wouldn't be anything special to now one of the most world-class organizations, thanks to him, his partnership with the front office, and also bringing in an international flavor to the NBA. And now with French phenom Victor Wembanyama joining them, it's going to continue to add to his legacy. I'm really excited to see what he has in store to help Wemby's development in the NBA. And this goes now to Tony Parker, probably the original, most famous French player ever to play out of the NBA. And he was a player that was so iconic with the Tony Parker spin cycle. I know those mid 2000s, the early 2010s, he was one of the best point guards in the league, just so dynamic in his play creating ability. Not the best jump shooter, even deep 3-point shooter, but very reliable in clutch situations. You knew whenever his number was called upon, he would deliver, and this was part of his dominant run in the 2007 finals. He was the first ever European player to ever win a finals MVP, and definitely worthy of being a first ballot Hall of Famer. Just changed the game and definitely helped a lot of European players transition from what we see now, from FIBA to just playing for your local European club, to now being arguably some of the faces of the NBA. And the next instrumental piece for the 2023 Naismith Hall of Fame class was Pau Gasol. He was one of my favorite players growing up as a kid. In those late 2000s, he was brought on from Memphis to LA to help Kobe win championships and bring the Lakers just one back at the Boston Celtics. He was called out by Kobe in 2008. He played soft against the Boston Celtics. He came second in the Olympics to Team USA with his side in Spain. And Kobe really pushed him unlike any other player that we've ever seen. I know that Kobe and Shaq are the most iconic duo of the modern era. I love them personally, but I have a really big soft spot for Kobe and Pau, just because I think that, in my personal opinion, he was my favorite big man to watch play for the Lakers. What Pau could do in the high post and pass, and this was something that we see out of Nikola Jokic do quite on a regular basis, but for a 7-footer at that time, those passes he made were just something unbelievable. I remember when he was leading a fast break as a 7-footer, making a couple through the leg dribble, making a nice pass over to Trevor Ariza for a dunk. That was the epitome of my childhood right there in my teenage years, and I will always remember the great times of Pau Gasol, just him having this redemption arc, winning a championship in 2009 and later in 2010 10 against the Boston Celtics, where he was able to redeem himself against that physical team, and he did so well. Kobe pushed him, and they have this brotherhood that remains to this day despite Kobe's passing. At his ceremony in his speech, Pau mentioned countless times about how Kobe is his hermano, and they would speak in Spanish constantly on the court just because Kobe is very fluent in Spanish. Growing up in Europe for a little bit of time, he picked it up just like the back of his hand. So that relationship there is just second to none. And I couldn't be happier for Pau Gasol. I mean, he was just so instrumental for the Lakers winning 2 championships in those late 2000s. Worthy of the Hall of Fame, and certainly I would love to see a statue outside of the Lakers stadium in the future. And this goes to another big man in Dirk Nowitzki. And Dirk was a guy that just changed the game. I mean, a lot of these guys have changed the game, but Dirk individually, he was the first true big man that was like 7 feet that could shoot 3-pointers on a regular basis. He had a 50, 40, 90 season. I remember he won an MVP in 2007. He has this patented one-legged fadeaway that we all know and love, and he changed the game in terms of just basically creating that stretch four position that we know today. He took defenders off the dribble from the high post. Just remember so many times that when guys like Serge Ibaka in that OKC series in 2011 tried to guard him, he just stood no chance. Shot blockers wouldn't have a chance in even deterring his shot because that one-legged fadeaway creates so much space. What he was able to do for Dallas, just like how Pop was able to change the culture in San Antonio, he changed the culture in Dallas. Dallas was always a franchise that was middling. They never really made the playoffs consistently, and he's now changed a franchise that was a bottom tier to being one of the most well-run franchises. Now, they're not as good as the San Antonio Spurs, but certainly him winning a title in 2011 against LeBron and those big 3 Miami Heat, that was probably the best run we've seen in the last 10 or 15 years. This one man carrying his team all the way to the title. And to go to the other side of that big time upset in 2011, we know that Dwayne Wade was also part of this class, and he's probably the best player in this whole Hall of Fame class just because he's won a Finals MVP with that big time run in 2006, leading the Miami Heat to the first ever title, averaging almost 35 points a game against Dirk's Mavs back in 2006, and he paved the way for LeBron to be the player that he is today. He showed LeBron how to be a leader, how to be a true alpha per se, and he's a great two-way guard. I mean, he was one of the best shot blocking shooting guards I've ever seen, other than like Michael Jordan per se. He could block shots, he could get steals, and is so explosive. Definitely go down as one of the best shooting guards of all time. Dwayne is an iconic player, the best player to ever put on a Miami Heat jersey, and with his legacy, I mean, he'll go down as the 3rd best shooting guard of all time.